Alright, you guys know what I'm talking about. We're gonna talk about Bayonetta 2 here. It's obvious. I mean, we in the Bayo mood. It's a guaranteed. So let's get started. So for us to fully talk about and appreciate what Bayonetta 2 has to offer and more, let's go back to a couple of years in time, more specifically from 2012 to 2014.
Ah man, what such fun times. Not only was it a time where I was busy being a middle schooler and getting a cactus out of my foot while I was out on a camping trip, but it was also a time where both Sony and Microsoft were too busy trying to one-up each other by announcing their next generation consoles. From newer specs to hardware, this was truly a time to be a gamer, as games were beginning to be out on the horizon to show what these bad boys were truly made of. Around this time also was the start of a whole new console for Nintendo, which was none other than the Wii U. Nintendo at the time were very eager to showcase not only the updated hardware it had for its time, but also what wonderful games it was to bring to the table for the next few years. From games such as Super Mario Bros. U, Legend of Zelda Wind Waker HD, Donkey Kong, Tropical Freeze, and more. It was also a time where Nintendo was trying new things, and that was the introduction to newer third-party IPs to the console. That meant games you would normally get in Xbox 360 or even on the PS3 were now being ported over to the Wii U in order to join in on the competition. This meant games such as Assassin's Creed, Batman Arkham series, and even original IPs such as Zombie U would finally arrive at the Wii U console, despite not selling too much due to its limitations. However, there was still hope for the Wii U console and Nintendo at large when they showed at E3 of 2013 that Bayonetta would be joining the Nintendo family, this time in the form of an all-exclusive sequel to the first game. Though it was announced beforehand that she would have a sequel in a Nintendo Direct back in 2012, the trailer shown at E3 held more substance and showed much potential, much like what the first game presented. This was massive for Platinum Games, as well as both Sega and especially Nintendo, as it was not only a major third-party IP that was coming into the Wii U, alongside Wonderful 101, which was also developed by Platinum Games, but it was perhaps a revival to the Wii U, as their overall roster of games before that was little to almost nothing. With Bayonetta this time around, things were looking hopeful for the Wii U. Now, to give a little bit of context as to why Bayonetta 2 was for the Wii U exclusively, it was because Kamiya needed additional funding for Platinum Games after Sega decided to say otherwise, and that was where Nintendo stepped in to help the team out. In fact, despite Kamiya's intentions of wanting to make a sequel thanks to the success that Bayonetta 1 received, Platinum Games producer Atsushi Inaba stated that had it not been for Nintendo stepping in, there wouldn't have been a sequel in the first place.
Thankfully, we don't live in that timeline, so all's good.
Then 2014 came rolling around the corner and Bayonetta 2 would finally be released for Japan on September 20th, 2014, while the West would receive it sometime the next month on October 24th. And thus, Bayonetta captivated us once more, this time with a few additional changes to her looks. Instead of her once long hair that resembled that of a witch's hat, Mama Bayo this time would now don a shorter hair appearance. Man, she just looks so much better this time around. I don't even know how to express myself here.
Here's how. I must.
Of course, much like the first game, Bayonetta 2 received massive success and praise from many who played it upon its release, saying it was one of the best action games to date, from having straight 10 out of 10 from review critics such as Famitsu, Edge, and GameSpot. However, there was also a bit of a detriment to its release, as since it was a Wii U exclusive, that meant that sales weren't to go as high as they should, and compared to the first game, Bayonetta 2 barely scratched the surface in terms of sales. In its first week alone, Bayonetta 2 reached over 39,000 copies, which was much fewer than what Bayonetta 1 sold at the time. That still didn't stop Platinum Games, as given the praise that Bayonetta 2 had, they would then port the original Bayonetta over to Wii U, which would also release around the same time as Bayonetta 2, acting as a bundle for those who wanted to try out Mama Bayo for the very first time.
At that point, Bayonetta became such a massive icon to both Platinum and Nintendo at large that she became even the final character for DLC in Super Smash Bros. 4, and that was in 2016. Then a year after that, in 2017, we will not only have announcements for Switch ports for both Bayonetta 1 and Bayonetta 2, but also Bayonetta 3. I gotta be honest here, at least it's better than what we have with Metroid Prime 4. I gotta be realistic here. Still, before coming into this, I was already hyped to play the second game, especially after finishing the first one not too long ago. Just seeing what the first game already presented, just so I can have my expectations for the second one, I can't say for certain that now after beating the game, Bayonetta 2 definitely outshines most of what Bayonetta 1 presented. It really, truly encapsulates what Bayonetta is all about and more, and I just feel like this will be a game that will just be a classic moving forward. That's just a fact right there. I will say that before we do dive into the story, I am going to be putting up the spoiler warning, the majestic spoiler warning. Let's be right here or somewhere around there. Basically, there's going to be a spoiler warning. I didn't do that in the last video, so you've been warned. You've been warned.
Now our story this time kicks off in the holiday season, where Enzo, our lovely fat Italian, not to be confused with our other favorite fat Italian, is busy being the butler for Bayonetta as she decides to go shopping and treat herself like the queen she is. From here we see the lovely logos of everyone involved, from Sega to Nintendo and all those in between, as the two walk around the city streets. While Bayonetta is busy shopping for the holidays, John makes her usual grand appearance via motorcycle to deliver some news. As it turns out, there have been far too many disturbances with both Paradiso and Inferno, causing major problems in the real world at large. Also, can I say quickly just how amazing these two witches look? They're just absolutely stunning and perfectly represent their personalities so well. I love it. Upon hearing the news, the city gets attacked all of a sudden as the flying jets that were to greet the holiday cheers are now sabotaged by the angels of Paradiso, making Bayonetta and John having to clean up the mess. From beating each angel baddie left and right in Bayonetta's typical fashion, that and having to be an exhibitionist before showcasing her iconic getup, I swear lady, get those clothes on right off the bat before you gotta do, why you gotta do this to us? Come on. In any case, something unexpected happens. As Bayonetta summons one of the beasts of Inferno, it suddenly loses control and goes straight towards Bayonetta. And at that moment, John takes the leap once more and gets her soul ripped out in order to save Bayonetta, thus being sent straight to Inferno for the soul reaping. Yeah, it just went dark all of a sudden. Holy crap, this is the prologue? After putting the beasts back in their place, Bayonetta is now worried for her Umbra sister, and thus makes her way towards the center of the world, Naughton, where the almighty mountain that connects both heaven and hell by the name of Fibbulbenter is located. From there, it's a race against time to save her Umbran sister before she is fully consumed by the wrath of Inferno. During her travels in the Enlightened City, she meets a little boy that goes by the name of Loki, who seems to be on a quest to head towards the mountain despite not knowing the exact reasons. I will say that he is quite the little shithead and is very cocky at times, but adds to the charm whenever he speaks with Bayonetta. That and...
Your move! It's time to
I knew I was reminded of something. Oh, and of course Luca's back in the game, this time catching a story about the legend of Aesir, a legend that speaks about the creation of the world done by the god known as Aesir, and how he divided two powers to give to humanity, which, you might have guessed it, the eyes of the world. Here is where things go to the usual Bayonetta-like turn. You realize there's more to the story than having to save John here, since it makes sense considering if you look back at Bayonetta 1, Mama Bayo now owns the left eye of the world. Now as for the right eye of the world, well apparently after Baldur's defeat, another Lumen Sage arrives with twin lances kicking in, this time to hunt down Loki while having to deal with Bayonetta along the way. This leads to a long confrontation. The more that you play the game, the more likely you'll start to understand why. After about a dozen attempts to try and make it to the very top of the mountain to reach Inferno, Loki and Bayonetta finally reach the depths of the mountain to access the gates of hell, and before long, the Lumen Sage is back, this time with a buddy by the name of Loftyr. It turns out that Loftyr is after Bayonetta because she possesses the left eye, while the Lumen Sage, now revealed to be none other than a younger version of Baldur, is after Loki due to the fact that it was him that killed Rosa, Bayonetta's mom, back during the witch hunts of 500 years past. Before long, Bayonetta gains access to the gates of hell, and Baldur, Loki, and Malbay herself are sent straight to the depths of Inferno to do what she was planning to do in the first place. From there, Bayonetta heads to the very center of Inferno, beat the living daylights out of a demon who seems to hate Madame Butterfly with no real reason, and boom! Our precious John is saved and restored to her body in one piece. Oh, did I mention that Rodon is here with us during our travels to Inferno? He's only here because of a job he had been dealing with for a while, which turned out to be right up Bayonetta's alley, giving us yet another cool-ass weapon to wreak havoc with. Thank you, Rodon. Thank you. Once Bayonetta fulfills what she sets out to do, she is encountered with Baldur one more time before suddenly being sent to the past. This time heading back to Vigrid, the city of Deja Vu, but from 500 years in the past. Here you play out the events of what happened, beat up angel baddies left and right, ride a big ass mech suit.
Wait, they had what now?
And then realize that it was Loftyr all along who killed Rosa, not Loki, which makes things all the more interesting here. Now learning this, both Bayonetta and Baldur himself, they head back to the present day, this time greeted with John once more in a fighter jet to make their way back to Fibbulbenter for the final encounter. Now comparing this to how Bayonetta entered towards Isla del Sol from the first game, here it was just amazing how we're on top of a jet and fighting both demons and angels at the same time. Truly an amazing set piece here, 10 out of 10. Finally, they reach the peak of the mountain, confront Loftyr and Loki, who turn out to be none other than halves of the legendary god Aesir himself. Loftyr then takes away Loki's power, becomes Aesir once more, and the final fight begins between God himself and both Lumen Sage and Umbra Witch. After beating the living crap out of Aesir, both Bayonetta and young Baldur now sent Loftyr Aesir flying towards the skies with the help of Jubileus herself as she drop kicks the god towards John for mealtime. Yeah, that's what you get, fam. Deal with it. With Loftyr's physical body gone, his soul now begins to flee in hopes of finding a timeline where he succeeds in his godly efforts. And as he makes his grand escape, Baldur rushes in the middle to stop him, using his own body as a container so that he won't ever escape from his grasp. While he is busy ensuring Loftyr doesn't escape, he makes one last promise to Bayonetta to call him father, and before long, he is sent back to his timeline, this time with Loftyr now sealed in his body.
Oh damn. Oh man, that was such an emotional moment with Bayonetta and Baldur. And it was just like, oh man. Wait, hold up a second. Hold up. Wait. Is this the reason why Baldur becomes evil in the first place? Like, back in the first game? Is that where the whole thing sort of loops back in the... I'm confused here.
Anyway, moving aside from that, now with Loftyr gone to another timeline, Loki is sent back to where he came from now that he has given the world the ability of free will, without the need of the eyes of the world. We are then greeted with Bayonetta and John the following days after the holidays, busy shopping around, and Luca and Rodon promoting the gates of hell, while Enzo swooping in on a plane with angels pursuing him, making Bayonetta and John to dance one more time before the credit roll.
When comparing this to the first Bayonetta game, Bayonetta 2 is simply perfection in the way it handles its story. I mean, sure, there are certain portions of the game where you may not understand it had you played the previous game, but for the most part, it treats the story here as if it's its own standalone game, much like how the Devil May Cry series handled its own games in terms of its timeline. And mind you, Bayonetta 2 also came with Bayonetta 1 upon its purchase. So if you bought Bayonetta 2, you had Bayonetta 1 on the Wii U. And it's just the perfect bundle and experience to have, and a wonderful marketing tactic done by Platinum Games and Nintendo.
Okay, now that story is covered, let's talk about the gameplay here, and let me tell you something straight off the bat. Bayonetta 2 not only improves what the basic gameplay elements that the first game had, but it adds a heck of a lot more variety this time around. First and foremost, the graphics are very noticeable here, being more brighter in their color tone compared to the first game, and having that more presence of blue light hues, much like how in the first game it had that red-like appearance. What's more is that Bayonetta here looks so much better in her design compared to the first game, which sure is iconic enough, but with her shorter hair, her now blue colored guns, and her overall style, changes in her clothing just screams Bayonetta and more. And the combat here, oh man, it feels so much smoother as well. The witch time feels more refined, the torture attacks are more stylish and upgraded, and the fact that they put more emphasis on aerial combat was just a blessing in disguise. And the bosses, Bayonetta 2 doesn't just give us boss battles to simply press buttons, but Platinum Games made sure that each and every single boss this time around was an experience to be a part of. Whether we were surfing in the middle of the skies, moving around in a platform while two big ass kaiju-like creatures are busy fighting in the background, or even while flying around in a big old mech suit.
Oh, and did I mention there were mech suits? I did? Damn.
What's more is that Bayonetta 2's combat favors diversity in combos, and this is all thanks to the weapons variation this time around as well. I mean, sure, you had somewhat of the same formula back in the first game, but seeing how smooth and polished the combat was here in Bayonetta 2, there was a sure incentive to try out the weapons this game had to offer, allowing more combos to floor easily between weapon changes. But what is undoubtedly the best gimmick this game offers are the Umbra climaxes, which essentially are mini climaxes that can be activated during basic combat. That way, it amplifies your combos as well as regenerates some health you may have lost. Now, Umbra climaxes were major in this game as it added more of that power boost to beat up enemies left and right, and made sure that if you were ever in a pinch, just suck on that purple lollipop and boost yourself up as you were nothing but a flesh wound. Now, despite all these cool additions to how combat and overall gameplay was introduced here in Bayonetta 2, I do want to point out that it did have some flaws here and there, and that was the difficulty, as the difficulty here fluctuated very weirdly compared to the first game. I mean, sometimes at certain points of the game, I found myself getting platinum medals easily, while in the next chapter, I would get hammered and end up with bronze or even stolen medals. With Bayonetta 1, it was more consistent in my opinion, but that didn't really stop me from mowing down angels and demons left and right. What I will say though is that the game did make things easier here, and that was the exploration. This time around we are greeted with Muspelheim secret areas, which, if I'm being completely honest here, they didn't even try and hide these portals in the overworld compared to Muspelheim in Bayonetta 1. I mean, literally 5 seconds after beating the first one, boom, another one shows up, and loses the incentive of wanting to move around and see if there are any secret areas to explore. I will say though that Muspelheim areas are a bit more challenging compared to the Vesperheim ones, but still, the game can still be pretty easy for the most part. Oh, and as a side note here, they also took out Angel Attack, which was like a little mini game you would often do in between chapters to get at some additional goodies. But again, I digress since that's not really much of an issue here. I mean, if anything, I get to play as John here officially without any mods, unlike the first game, so I guess an eye for an eye is what I'm saying here. And there's also Tag Climax? Honestly, I didn't bother to check this one, so I'm just gonna ignore it and call it a day here. Finally, there are the Nintendo costumes, like in the first game, where you basically had the set of costumes that range from various different Nintendo characters such as Peach, Daisy, Samus, and Link, but this time in Bayonetta 2, they added Star Fox this time around, which honestly, that's all there is, but they also added a bunch of other additional weapons that are Nintendo themed as well, and I absolutely love it. I mean, look at that chain chop go, wow.
Aside from that, I had tons of fun playing Bayonetta 2. In my eyes, it is truly a pure Platinum sequel. I mean, there were just so many additions compared to the first game that this game nailed. And sure, they may have reused assets from the first game for the Vigrid sections of this game, but for the most part, the angel designs, the demon designs in this game still contain the Bayonetta flair, especially in its original context for this game. 1 and Bayonetta 2 are done. I just can't wait to see what is in store for Bayonetta in the future. Wherever that future is. I'm telling you, I will die on this Bayonetta 3 hill. Kamiya, I will. You better give us some news or else I can't really do anything. Just please give us Bayo 3 soon, man. Still, with an array of games at my disposal, the Bayonetta series is always going to be an unforgettable experience. I mean, I had so much fun playing the games, and now that these games are now finally done and out of my backlog, I am just so excited to finally go back to playing Paper Mario the Origami King, because last time I checked, I was playing that game before the Bayonetta hype sort of swooped in like a hawk, and I mean, I am just so excited to go back in the Paper Mario experience. I am just so okay, what is this? I'm stuck in this Platinum Games rabbit hole, aren't I?